It's never easy for me to speak in public, but in Savannah they persuaded me and made me do it because growing up in Hungary, which is my country, and being Jewish, even before the Holocaust, I didn't want to be seen or heard very often because there was always anti-Semitism, and unfortunately there will always be anti-Semitism in the world. And by the age of 21, I have lived through the Second World War, the Holocaust, the Hungarian Revolution, communism, and immigration to America. The only pleasant one was the last. The others were rather traumatic. I was 8.5 years old when the Germans in March of 1944 occupied Hungary. And that's when the Holocaust for me and most Hungarians really started. Until that time, I was a very happy child. My father had a pharmacy and a dental supply store, and my mother was a pianist. She taught piano, and she was also the assistant voice coach at the opera house. And as a little girl already, quite often if I wanted to talk to my mother, I sat through a rehearsal. So at the very young age, I became a lover of classical music. And I went to the Jewish day school, which was a Reformed Jewish school. We had many secular subjects and a few hours of religious studies a week. I was very happy there. It was a small class in a beautiful building, and after school I always used to go to the playground, and I went to the same playground all the time. And when the Germans occupied us in 1944, I still went to the playground in the beginning. Later on we were forbidden, and the same children I always played with suddenly called me a dirty Jew. How did they know we were Jewish? The Germans made us wear a yellow star, and I happened to have a brand new navy blue coat, and I asked my grandmother, she lived with us, if she could possibly color my coat yellow so the star wouldn't show up. You don't want to be different from anybody else, and especially when you're a child. But Grandma said she's not allowed to do that. And then shortly thereafter, they started taking away our belongings. We lived in a very beautiful apartment building on the first floor. We had a balcony and a terrace, and the Hungarians started coming over with requisitions which they got from the government and started taking away our belongings. I remember standing in the hallway and watching everything carried away. The one that hurt me the most, when they carried away my doll Susie, and I was telling my mother, does Susie have to go too? And my mother said, keep quiet, everything they take, they're gonna take, and we have no say-so in it. Little did I know that my mother knew what was coming, and she marked our paintings, she marked all our belongings with my father's business stamps, and some she marked with her initials. And they took her piano also, which I think hurt her the most. Two ladies came with a mover and took the piano, and then they told us that we are allowed to pack one little suitcase. Every person was allowed one suitcase, and they took us to the ghetto. Now the ghetto in every city in Hungary was an area that surrounded the Jewish temple or synagogue. In my hometown, it happened to be a temple because we were Reformed Jews. If you have any questions about that later on, I'll explain it. And they put us 8 to 10 in a room in buildings surrounding the temple, and they walled us in. And they took the women in the community center and bodily searched them. I didn't really understand at that time, but later on I did. And one day I looked out and I saw a cage in front of our building between the community center and the temple, and in the cage were people, and I never knew that they put people in a cage. I asked my father, who are those people, and he told me they were Jewish people that were in the mental hospital, and they took them out. And then they took them away, we never saw them again. We heard afterwards that the good Hungarian Nazis and the Germans in unison killed them. Hungary had a very strong Nazi party also, and they were very glad to help the Germans in killing the Jewish people. And then from the ghetto, shortly thereafter, they took us in the outskirts of the city. The name of my city is Szeged. It's in the very, very southern tip of Hungary, a half hour from my hometown, and you are in Serbia. I always tell people here, where are you from? Because I have an accent. And I tell them I'm basically a southerner, actually a southern Hungarian. But I don't add that, let them wonder. And then they took us in the outskirts of the city in the brick factory, and we slept on the floor, and we used a latrine. A latrine is actually a hole in the ground, and my mother was holding me because I was very small, and I probably would have fallen in. And we were there for about a week or 10 days, I'm not quite sure of the time. And then they started putting us into cattle cars, 80 to 100 in a cattle car. Not much water and no food. And that's when I first saw people dying. I was sitting on the floor between my parents. In the middle was a pretty good sized bucket for, you know what it was for. And we kept going, and my mother asked my father, where are we going? And he said, we're going west. He didn't know where, but he said, we are going toward Austria. And then they took us out of the cattle car for a while, and we had to march. And anybody that couldn't walk, they were shooting. And my grandmother was up in years and had severe dysentery, which no pleasure in these circumstances at all. And she was having difficulty moving, and my mother, who was also very athletic, put her on her back and carried her. It was her mother-in-law, and I have to admit they never very much liked each other. You never like the woman your son marries. You always find some fault with them. I know now since I'm a mother-in-law also. And my mother at that time saved her life. Then they put us back into the cattle car. Why they took us out and put us back, I don't know, just to make us suffer more. And then we kept going, and we got to a place in Austria. By then, there was no 80 to 100, at least 20 or more people died, and we had the dead bodies in the cattle car with us also. It was in April, was getting